Hello. We kind of want to get started. So if you can hear my voice and you're outside, please come in. We want to start our next session. So our next presenters are going to present virtually. I would love to hear from the technical team if they are ready to kickstart the session. Okay, we do have a keynote speaker, Dr. Godfrey Boahen, who will be sharing in the next 30 minutes. And I want to go ahead to invite Dr. Godfrey to talk to us. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Friends, colleagues, and comrades, I am delighted to join you today from London and England. I am sorry that I can't be there in person, but you know the world that we live in now. As has been said, my name is Dr. Godfrey Boahen. I am a social work academic, but I currently work for the Church of England as the National Safeguarding Policy and Development Lead. But today I'm talking to you here in a personal capacity, but drawing on some important research that I have been doing on the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and also some research that I undertook in anti-poverty practice when I worked for the British Association of Social Workers for 3 years. As you can tell from how I look and how I speak, I am a son of Africa, having grown up in Ghana until my teens. So today I'm talking to you as a son of Africa. And I want to combine two important, famous African concepts in my speech this morning. The first concept is a famous Ghanaian saying, Sankofa, which is depicted by a mythical bird which is able to twist its neck to its back and to use its mouth to collect an egg from its back. That's an egg that it seems to have left on its back. Sankofa is an Akan or Twi saying, Twi in the Ashanti region of Ghana. And it means go back to your roots. Right? Go back to your culture to retrieve what you've left behind. Or it can also mean do not forget your past. So Sankofa, when you put it that way, is a command to always remember the good aspects of the past. And it urges us to continuously reflect on the present, so that we can ask ourselves whether there are some good things about the past that we're leaving behind. So the second concept that I want to use in my speech this morning is, of course, Ubuntu. That famous saying which says, I am because you are. And when I'm combining those two concepts this morning, the title of my speech, I'll say the Ghanaian title first. It is Social Work, Sankofa Ubuntu Ewo Sustainable Development Goals. It's an Akan phrase. And when you translate that into English, it means social work, go back and retrieve Ubuntu in the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is a command to social work to remain anchored to the spirit of Ubuntu, even as we think about the Sustainable Development Goals and our unique contributions to realizing the SDG goals. This command, I will argue, applies to social work globally. But in Africa, it has particular resonance. And here I want to recount a recent experience that I had when I returned to Ghana in October for my grandmother's funeral. I saw two very different Ghanas. The first Ghana that I saw was Accra, the capital, which is a thriving, throbbing African city full of people hustling and people in hustle trying to make ends meet. Over in Accra, it was one person, each person for themselves, epitomizing the nature of Western capitalism, which has made Accra very rich in some parts, but also full of poverty, extreme poverty in other parts. But the other side of Ghana that I saw, which draws attention to Ubuntu, was when I visited my grandmother's village for her funeral. Her village is in the middle of the forest in the Ashanti region. And over here, people work on the land. People still rely on elders to settle disputes. And when one family has a funeral, others feel that they have to make donations to contribute to the cost of their funeral. And they made these donations from their meager income. But why do people do this? People do this because of Ubuntu. People recognize that if death occurs in my family, I would also be relying on other families to support me both financially and also in spirit. This is because of the spirit of Ubuntu. You are because I am, and therefore I am because you are. So Sankofa Ubuntu, that's Ghanaian phrase, applies to global social work, but especially in Africa, it reminds us that even as Africa is undergoing rapid urbanization and economic change, which is putting the spirit of Ubuntu under so much pressure, we always need to remember that it takes a village, it takes Ubuntu for us all to realize who we are. So drawing on these concepts, this morning, my speech will proceed as follows. I will start by outlining the Sustainable Development Goals, and I won't spend too much time on this because I know that others have discussed this during the conference. But when I talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, I want to trace the role of social work in SDGs, but I will focus on human rights because I want to argue that human rights are the practice and practical implications of Ubuntu in social work. And then I will end by using community development social work as a case study that epitomizes the concepts of Ubuntu and Sankofa that I have already spoken about. So now let me start with the SDGs, a quick overview. As we know, the SDGs constitute a global agreements which were signed by world leaders at the United Nations in 2015. The purpose of the SDGs is the elimination of extreme poverty across the world, both in rich and poor countries. And they're contained in the landmark document, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As others have said in the course of this conference, there are 17 SDG, high-level SDGs, and they each have their targets. And the high-level SDGs include sustainability, gender equality, poverty, and partnerships. They also recognize the SDGs that in order for governments to eliminate extreme poverty, there is the need for governments to implement social protection systems and also social welfare systems. And it is this that makes social work so crucial to the attainment of the SDGs, because we all know from our practice across social work in Africa that whether we practice in the formal sector for governments or whether we practice for NGOs or whether we practice with churches or whether we practice in communities, we're performing the role of social welfare. And therefore, as social workers, we are completely indispensable to social welfare programs across the globe. And that's why it is really important that in discharging these duties, we rely and always draw on Ubuntu. What I want to argue here, though, is that even though the SDGs place social work at the center of the elimination of extreme poverty, we know that this is the history of our profession. You know, there's a long-standing engagement of social work with poverty. The profession originated in anti-poverty charities in Europe and the United States of America. But in more contemporary times, even before the publication of the SDGs, the International Federation of Social Workers launched the Global Agenda for Social Work and Social Development. This was the universal policy and practice goal for social workers. And again, it was underpinned by principles of sustainable economic growth, environmental protection, and human rights. All at the core of this is the elimination of material deprivation, which is also the main goals of the SDGs. So both the SDGs and the Global Agenda of Social Work have the core aims, at their core aims, the consideration of the reduction of poverty and environmental sustainability as issues of social justice and human rights for all of us. I will also argue that the SDGs and the Global Agenda are underpinned by theories of intersectionality, and therefore they highlight the importance of Ubuntu in meeting them. For instance, the SDGs postulate that there are some people who are more vulnerable than others because of the prevailing socioeconomic systems. So the SDGs suggest that women, children, and youths, persons with disabilities, older persons, indigenous peoples, internally displaced people, migrants, and refugees are particularly vulnerable. Thus, even though the SDGs do not state this explicitly, by highlighting relative disempowerment, they require governments to reduce rising inequalities, marginalization, and environmental degradation caused by the prevailing global economic system. These policy goals are also consistent with the perspectives of the social work profession. But more importantly, they draw attention to the fact that because of how societies are structured, there are prevailing inequalities which make certain people uniquely vulnerable. And that's why Ubuntu is important, because we are, and we need to care and address the needs of those people. In other words, what drives you and me as social workers to care and support people is because when we see their suffering and their poverty, we are reminded of our own vulnerabilities. And because we are reminded of our own vulnerabilities, we are also reminded of what we expect others to do for us in our times of need. And that is really the spirit of Ubuntu, which should shine through all the anti-poverty work that we do around the SDGs. So I now want to turn to human rights and the SDGs. And here, as has been argued by others, the SDGs are based on the concept of 3 generations of human rights. The first generation type of human rights refers to civil and political rights. The second refers to social, economic, and cultural rights. And the third generation, highlighting the spirit of Ubuntu, rely on solidarity rights, which embrace collective rights of society or people, such as the right to sustainable development, to peace, and to a healthy environment. This is a quote from the Council of Europe. It is argued that because social workers operate across the economic sphere, society, and their individual, their role really cuts across these three generations of human rights that I have outlined. So for instance, it also draws our attention to the fact that in order to attain some human rights, if we're not careful, we might trample on some of the other goals of the SDGs. So for instance, to attain the third generation rights, social workers may have to engage in political action or become involved in policy making. At the same time, the rights in the SDGs are polycentric, meaning that to get one of them, you may have to go against the others. For instance, targeting economic growth may conflict with climate action. So if social workers want to improve economic growth in certain parts of the world, it might need that people's environmental rights are trampled upon. And it is for this reason that the spirit of Ubuntu is so important in what we do in terms of the SDGs. We always have to remember the need to look after other people's rights, even as we try to advance the human rights of other people. A case study of this approach, for instance, is depicted by the work of Rambari, which is based on his study in Mauritius, where he explores the local population's reaction to new constructions on the coast. Rambari proposes eco-critical practice as a framework by which local people can claim a voice in the planning of new developments that affects them. So always ensuring that local people can claim a say in environmental development, which would affect the environmental sustainability of the areas in which they live. And the last point I want to make on this is that in talking about Ubuntu, we also have to recognize that social workers are operating with a multidimensional concept of poverty. This means that we understand poverty to be material deprivation, social alienation, and also people's subjective rights and needs, such as their rights and needs to have their culture respected. So in social work, the multidimensional concept of poverty is reflected in the understanding that human needs are holistic and they include socio-economic, psychological, the cultural, and the ethical. And they're also all relative to the unique culture that people live in. So this theorization implies that it is possible for people to have wealth and still be alienated, as we recognize, for instance, in the global north, right? Conversely, in the global south, it is also possible for people to have a full participation in their community, in their affairs, at the same time as being alienated economically because they have material deprivations. And so what I have explained in this section really draws our attention to the need to always remain anchored to relationship-based models of social work practice. What they do is that they emphasize that through relationship building, it is through relationship building that social workers can enable people to have their voices heard, even as we face rapid urbanization and rapid socioeconomic development. So in summary, ideal social work practice remains anchored to Ubuntu because it recognizes the holistic needs of people and combines this with a multi-dimensional understanding of poverty, all rooted in the spirit of Ubuntu and relationship-based practice. So now I want to turn, as I finish, to community development, because it is a second illustration of how we can practice Ubuntu in an anti-poverty way whilst we try to realize some of the goals of the SDGs. Proponents of this model, community development, argue that it is underpinned by principles which committed to draw on the strengths within the community, the strengths within people's culture, rather than simply remedial practice in which social workers try to seek finance or change people to be different persons than they are used to in their communities. There is also an explicit commitment to improving the community, to maintaining the spirit of Ubuntu. And this quote from Midgley in a writing in 2010 highlights this. The process of change should produce tangible improvements in the standards of living, health and education, and a concomitant reduction to poverty, malnutrition, and illiteracy. It is the emphasis on material welfare that is given particular emphasis in the social development literature, and it has special significance for this conceptualization of developmental social work. So these two principles, the focus on community welfare and improvement on people's material well-being, I would argue, enable us to draw on the spirit of Ubuntu, even whilst we work to realize the goals of the SDGs. So I realize the time now, and I want to make some room for questions. So I want to conclude here. I have been arguing that social work has to understand the spirit of Sankofa, which is always going back to our roots around the need to address the cultural needs of people, around the needs for people to think about the African spirit of Ubuntu, even as we go towards rapid socioeconomic development, which is epitomized in some of the SDG goals and also some of the rapid urbanization ongoing in Africa, because there is a tension here. On one hand, we want socioeconomic development to lift people out of poverty. But on the other hand, we want to maintain our traditional way of life. And one way of resolving that tension, of always looking back to the past to keep hold of our African culture, is by thinking about the spirit of Ubuntu, maintaining the need to care and look after each other, even as we advance towards rapid socio-economic growth. Because it is by recognizing you that I see myself, and vice versa. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll now pause here for some questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Godfred. I just love how you talk with passion. You really show the spirit of Ubuntu, and I'm glad to hear the concept of Sankofa, Ubuntu. I want to read this quotation before opening the floor for questions. I once saw a quotation about Sankofa, which says, anyone who says that was in the past or forget the past, or that was a long time ago, is leading us toward a nation of knowledge of self, and thus a life of motion without continuity. So thank you so much for reminding us the concept of Sankofa, Ubuntu. I want to give an opportunity for people to ask questions, just two, a question or it's Devi and Sir from Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Godfred, for the presentation. It has been really marvelous. I have a question, but it is framed, it's continuous. That's what I should say. Based on what you've been saying, mostly you focused on our African philosophy, Ubuntu. But my question goes, if really we are to go back to our roots, like you said, Sankofa, my question is, does this Ubuntu have its elements that should be implemented as we Africans, that we should put in place so that we resolve all these problems that are facing our society as Africa and in general, the entire world? Then my second question goes, if these Ubuntu elements are to be manifested, should they be centralized or decentralized? And what are the challenges of these two approaches of manifesting and implementing these elements, either being centralized or decentralized? Thank you very much.
Dr. Godfrey, I think you can respond that question before you take another question from this side.
Yeah, I think, thank you so much. I think that's a really wonderful question. And in some way, you neatly draw out some of the issues that I have been outlining in the paper. There are two things that I want to say about this. I think we have to recognize that as much as the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, seek to recognize people's indigenous culture, there are elements of Western philosophy which are embedded in them. I mean, some people would argue that they reflect neoliberal take on socioeconomic development, even as they remain anchored to the need to pay attention to environmental sustainability. So if we understand that there are elements of neoliberal Western conceptualizations of the individual or of society embedded in the SDGs, the question that arises from that is, how do we translate those SDGs requirements into an Afrocentric way, which then reflects the unique cultural context of Africa or of African society? And my argument is that we do this by drawing on Sankofa, remembering our African traditional culture, which is really society looking after itself and structured in a way that people are able to participate in society, right? And then anchoring that also within the spirit of Ubuntu, which is that people participate in their society. It takes a village, but actually it's really underscored by people also caring for each other, as we all know happens in our traditional African villages, for instance, where the society actually looks after each other. So even as we move towards rapid economic development, or that's what we aspire to, we'd always need to remain anchored that this shouldn't be at the expense of our traditional way of doing things. And in fact, our traditional way of doing things can help us protect us from some of the disadvantages of rapid economic growth, for instance. And then the last point, which I think you highlighted, or your question, was whether this should be decentralized or centralized. I would argue that our societies are decentralized, right? Naturally, you know, we have people living in particular ethnic groups, for instance, particular cultural groups, which have their unique systems of government, which are then interlaid, if you like, by central government, which arguably is a colonial construction anyway. So if we really want to practice Ubuntu and Sankofa, the implication is that we need to remain decentralized, right? And actually, social workers can recognize this, that even as we work in traditional societies and help them change and meet their material needs. We do this by recognizing that unique context and culture of those traditional societies. So those are my take on those the two very important questions that you asked. Thank you.
Godfrey, thank you so much. And because of time, we just have to move to the next session. But thank you. In my local language, Kiswahili, we have a say that says "kumbuka ulikotoka." Like as you keep moving, as you keep going ahead, don't forget the values that you learned before. So we directly want to go to the next session. Time is not on our side, so please bear with us. It's a workshop by the Uganda NASWU. I hope this is the National Association of, is it so, Dr. Emmanuel? From Uganda, leveraging information and communication technology to manage COVID-19 pandemic. Lessons from a 6-month national advocacy and capacity strengthening project coordinated by the National Association of Social Workers of Uganda. So I want to welcome a person who will be leading us in this session. Thank you.
My name is Gerard Okiria from Uganda, and I'm glad to be presenting on what we did in the 6 months. I should say that we shared our video presentation. So over to the IT, and we will be glad to respond to any concerns that will arise from the presentations. Otherwise, you're welcome to IFS Africa, Kigali, and I'm connecting from Uganda. IT, kindly confirm that you have that video. I don't know that our moderator can help to confirm that.
We are going live with the video. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. What an excitement for us to be connecting with you once again from Uganda. If you remember very well, we are the country that last hosted this conference, 2019. And we are back yet again, joining you, our brothers from Rwanda, those that have come to join us from other countries. My name is Gerard Okiria. I'm a social worker from here in Uganda. I serve on the National Uganda board as the national treasurer, and I work with Compassion International, which I am very sure is expanding in more African countries. I am a chief editor of the Commonwealth Organization of Social Work. What an excitement is it for me to join you together with my other colleagues that will be making this presentation on behalf of the National Association of Social Workers of Uganda on what we have been doing during these 2 years of COVID pandemic. So at this moment, allow me to invite my brother John Mary to take us through the first session of our presentation. Over to you, John Mary.
Thanks very much, Jared. Greetings from Kampala. I'm John Mary Sekati. I'm the National Coordinator of the National Association of Social Workers of Uganda. I serve on the International Federation of Social Work Occupational Therapy Committee, and also as an independent social worker for children and families across borders. We had an engagement during COVID-19, and our topic is on leveraging technology to support families, to support children, and also strengthen capacity of frontline social workers. You can see the presenters. I'm John Mary Sekate, Gerald Okiria, and our colleague Ben Sebuma, who will be coming later. We are representing NASU, and that is the layout of our presentation about NASU, project description, our motivation, our approach, advocacy interventions we made, and capacity building efforts, lessons we learned, and also recommendations. When you talk about NASU, NASU is a professional body which is mandated to promote social work and social development in Uganda. And we are a member of International Federation of Social Work and Global Social Workforce. And also we work with over 30 universities here in Uganda and over 50 social work agencies with a membership of about 7,908. NASU is led by an executive committee of 13 members with Michael Byamukama-Ntanda as our current president. And also NASU, we hosted the International Federation of Social Work Africa Conference 2019. That is, I think, enough for you to know about us. The project, of course, we intended to see that we continue working and supporting communities and promoting resilience and positive mechanism, mental health, resilience of children and families during COVID-19, but using technology. The project addressed the challenges of physical limitations that were imposed on gatherings, but also as a visible strategy to continue supporting vulnerable populations like the children between July and January 2021. The project targeted early career professionals because they are most on social media, and also they have bigger network, and also worked with NGOs and government structures across the country. We realized that the old structures could not work, like anyone also realized that. And therefore we needed to harness technology and orient our services to address the needs of both existing and the millions of Ugandans that suddenly had been thrown into turmoil by the virus. Our motivation was to dispel fear, myth, stigma in the population, but also we wanted also to change the perception that COVID-19 was a medical issue, because for us we believe, yes, it is one part a medical issue, but it is largely a social, behavioral, psychosocial, that require social work intervention models. But also we had a desire to save our vulnerable groups like the children, the affected and infected, and also to support frontline social workers to continue working remotely in different parts of the country. But also we had the public trust and confidence. The population had trust in professional bodies like NASU. Social workers, especially early career professionals, also realize they are on social media, they are also trusted in the community. So that was all the motivation for our intervention of using technology that we use to support communities. The approach was we identified participants, like how you can see, we identified over 200 active social workers, and also we also had that orientation for them to understand the concept of advocacy and using online platforms. We also used the ethical principles. We wanted that even though we are using technology, the social work principles, like a social ethical use of technology and social media should be upheld, and also was one of the approach we integrated. NASU worked with selected social workers to develop and share posts every week on selected social media sites and linked to our system. We also had virtual guidance because as they shared, we realized that they needed the guidance. For example, they could give us feedback, and also we continue guiding them on issues of children, on issues of family, on issues of confidentiality. NASU worked also in partnership to make this project a reality with ministries and institutions. And also the project was guided by principles of social work, like self-determination, which views the community as a catalyst of change, agent of change, target of change, and also an indispensable resource that the community itself consumes. Our advocacy also was in relation to International Federation of Social Work agenda of co-building with people, families, and communities. You realize that the struggle for COVID-19 fight went into community, and therefore wanted to empower the people, the social workers on the front line, also to cascade the information. Also, when you look at our implementation process, NASU conducted weekly reflective meetings where we could engage with the participants, with younger people, younger social workers to give us the responses, and therefore we could also guide them accordingly. We came up with both weekly and also final reports for this, which is also part of this presentation. When you look at the summary, that's how it was. We could identify social workers, orient them, we approve posts, and then they could be allowed to share them and then spark discussion online. You could see that there are different social media platforms that were used, like WhatsApp, like LinkedIn. There was also Twitter and also social media platforms. So that was the approach we used and the model in summary. When you look at advocacy, this was online advocacy, and therefore we used online discussions and shares. Our belief was that the more the discussion is shared, the more is liked, the more the information has reached the community. So online discussions and shares, it promotes and model positive coping mechanism. For example, if the discussion was on prevention of COVID-19 and it is shared among many people, it means it is trying to help cope and help the population cope very well with the disease. It also ended up creating an enabling environment for resilience, as you will see in our observations in the discussion. Those were some of the examples of the posts, of daily posts, the young people, young social workers used to make. And also we had a special day called the Info Friday. When you look at the post which is coming, there were some messages that were general. For example, when you look at Sauti 116, it is a toll-free line that we use to share, and that one could be shared on Fridays. And also the Ministry of Health also had guidance, like on what the signs of COVID-19. So we could guide them that all Fridays we could share the same information, say from Ministry of Gender, like Sauti, or Ministry of Health. So in that, we realized that Info Friday sparked a lot of debate online and also likes. When you look at the summary down, it is a summary of what we did on one of the months, a sample of 1 month. For example, week 1 was on resilience amid COVID-19. You could see the likes and shares on Facebook, the likes and shares on WhatsApp, on Instagram, and also on Twitter. And also when you look on week 2, we are looking at protection of children, COVID-19 pandemic. These were the likes, shares, then on WhatsApp. These were the likes and shares on Instagram and also on Twitter. When you look at week 3, we are looking on safety measures in preventing the spread of COVID-19. Those were the likes, shares of WhatsApp, Instagram, and Twitter. When you look on the fourth week, we are looking at increasing community vigilance on measures to curb COVID-19. So the total for 1 month, you can see the total was 66,000 for Facebook only, 514 shares, 998. But as you can see up to the end, what we learned in these shares and also discussions online, that social media has that power of spiking that discussion. From this point, let me invite Gerard to continue with the discussion.
Wow, thank you very much, John Mary. And friends, I want to believe that this is yet another season when we have come to realize the importance of social media and how things have really been working out for us as a globe generally. So sometimes we have a common saying that in the virtual world, you can reach certain countries before you even step into there. So I believe some of you from different countries have come to know John Mary, have come to know me, have come to know our IFS president and a number of people in Joachim through, virtual interaction, and Mayaka, who is one of the coordinators of this conference. And of course, not forgetting Charles. But nonetheless, during this intervention, we're able to conduct 10 webinars as the Social Workers Association here in Uganda. And we covered different areas: child protection, mental health, community engagement, and COVID prevention strategies. And we were able to attract both local and international participants. We thank all those that joined us. We had online mentorship, where we had 102 frontline social workers who were working remotely, and we're supporting them via tele counseling and encouraging them, giving them information. We had some of our partners, and particularly in Western Uganda, where we were able to have home-based care. And we would wish to thank the team lead, that is Lydia, who is also one of our board members, who offered great help to over 30 people in Western Uganda. Unfortunately, one passed on, but as social workers, we believe that by the time someone passes on in the hands of a social worker, they've just rested. And we thank all of you that did that part. We supported over 5,000 Ugandans who were affected by COVID in quarantine centers, and we were able to work closely with the Ministry of Health, where we offered counselors to take part in the counseling sessions. As NASU, we discovered that, to continue serving our country much better, we needed to work with a number of ministries. It is during this season that our partnership with the Ministry of Health grew stronger, and also working alongside with our colleagues, the counselors, was also another bit that really helped us to advance. We worked closely with the famous Makerere University, where we came up with strategies on how to engage community. And we thank them so much, because they've not let us, and we've not also let them go, because we have worked also closely in this season. And I wish to encourage even the other colleagues that are there, please, let's work together as institutions, as associations, and also as practitioners, wherever we may be. Recently, as the National Association of Social Workers, we are glad that we co-hosted the Psycho Social Support Forum, which was also streaming live on the Facebook page of NASU and on a number of different platforms, mainly when they were hosting the Social Support forum that was across the region. We were able to present, we were able to share and get to learn different things that people needed to pick a leaf from. Our evaluation lessons and things that we picked, we discovered that young professionals have greater potential And you know, these guys are very amazing. I used to think that I was still young until when I gave the young people opportunity to do the online bits, and they were able to advance the campaign. As John Mary said, we discovered that even people trust them. They even trust their social media accounts. I remember in one of the webinars where we had with IFS Africa, I engaged with one of the ladies from IFS from Zambia, a very amazing young lady and very influential in the media area. That was so good. So we discovered that the youths and the young professionals are not using the social media platforms lightly, but they're using to advance the social agenda. They are very creative and they were able to connect with their fellow youth in a number of areas. And we are glad that they are keeping the flag of social work up. We learned that community-led interventions in the fight against COVID-19 are more reliable and sustainable. Today here in Uganda, it's very rare to hear of a COVID-19 case, but even when it happens, we strengthen the system from the grassroots and the teams are able to respond. The things of stigma, we're able to fight them as early as possible. And we came close, worked together with the Ministry of Health, worked together with all the stakeholders, and they were able to respect and advance. So the community has now taken charge, and with our support, because many of them that are down there, you know, lack the professional touch. So we have social workers that are working alongside them in advancing this agenda. We learned that organizations need to mainstream young people in their programming to create significant and sustainable protection of children and families from stressors. Yes, the young people have interesting things, interesting new things to keep the children active. In Uganda, we are in November, schools are still closed except for universities that open, I think, this month. But we had almost spent over 2 years. But now feel pity for the young children. I think it will be a good thing whenever young people get on board. I'll end here, but just to remind you, after this presentation by Ben, we are going to be having questions and answers, and we'll be live, ready to hear from you what questions you have for us. So over to you, Ben. Take us through. Ben?
Okay, thank you, Gerald and John Mary for the introduction. I'm Seboma Ben, and I'm a social worker, and I work here at National Secretariat in Kampala, Uganda. We made a number of recommendations in line with the theme of the conference, that's Ubuntu. And one, we justified that our intervention was itself in the spirit of Ubuntu, because our project was supporting people who were vulnerable during COVID-19. That meant that we were not leaving the children, the families who were faced with a challenge of COVID-19. And in our intervention, we were still guided by the principles of social work, which relate closely with Ubuntu values. For example, when you talk about dignity and worth of the person, that implied that we are not leaving any other person, whether disabled, whether a child, whether an aged person. That means that our approach was all-inclusive, and we also ensured that the principle of human rights was at the center of our intervention, and that brings in the issue of humanity that we were trying to promote, the issue of rights. We also ensured social justice, that men and women, children and the young and the aged were also being targeted in order to create resiliences and fight the disease that had affected the whole world, and Uganda inclusive. We also, in our further recommendations, we say that in order to achieve more of the sustainable development goals, technology should be at the center, because during this COVID-19, we have learned that technology, as my colleague has said, can reach a big audience, and that can help us to cascade information that relates to achieving the sustainable development goals. We also recommend strengthening of professional bodies like the professional body in Kampala in Uganda. If it is strengthened, especially targeting the other professional careers, we can be able to expand social work services to every other person in our community. Finally, also recommended the need for to embrace technology as a new order, because of the limitations that were brought by COVID-19, moving from door to door or mobilizing big number of people was not possible, and thus a new paradigm of advocacy, of conducting trainings, of sending out information to big number of people. Technology done it better for us, and we recommend that technology can change the game of social work. We also believe that relationship created by young social workers in Uganda and the professional body exploited an opportunity where we can empower these young current professional social workers in trying to support the families, the children, and communities in the case of any other global health catastrophe like the one of COVID, which we're experiencing. We also believe that going forward, social work needs to be at the center of all the work that we do, embracing each other, promoting fairness, justice to communities, because once we do that in our intervention, it means that the poor, the vulnerable people can also be reached at a greater scale. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Well, thank you very much, friends, for listening to us and joining us. For us as a team here in Uganda, I want to thank you so much. We are now ready to take up your questions, and we'll be glad to hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gerald. I think we can clap one more time. Let's appreciate them. Let's clap for them. And because of time, we'll be able to take just one question from this side, then go on to the next session. Please, if you have a question, just raise up your hand. Gerard, I hope you are there to respond to one question.
Sure, I'm there.
And if we don't have one from this side, maybe from the virtual participants or from Huye campus, we can take one question as we're getting ready for the next session.
You know, when the teacher has been very good, people always understand the concept and have few questions. But I see there is a hand in Kigali.
Thank you, Mr. Sekate. My name is David. We were together in the on the first day. So my question goes to the last presenter, and it is all about what he lastly talked about, the essence of technology in achieving SDGs. And my question is framed in the way that I would like to know if really COVID-19, by God's grace, is brought to an end. What do you think is the advantage of using technology as you used it in COVID-19, compared to physical impact of interaction, as in we are trying to find the resolutions of achieving SDGs? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Just a quick answer is no one would be left behind. No one would miss. For example, with technology, I've been following the conference from the word go up to now. So it's one of the things that you're sure that no one will be left behind. And also, if you are to relate it to the interventions that we give to our clients, every client will be able to be reached in real time. You can imagine having a Zoom with a client and you are offering that therapy while you're looking at each other. Of course, later on, you could also consider physical. So thank you very much. I see there's a hand from Alice, and I think John Mary would also say something. Thank you.
Okay, maybe in relation to that question, Gerard, thanks very much for the input. But the question is directed to how we can harness technology in relation to sustainable development goals. For example, one of the challenges and the global challenges of our time, besides COVID-19, is climate change. And lately, we need to see the youth, the younger people on the front line of advocacy and also community engagement to cause significant change in relation to address the effects of climate change in our continent, but also globally. We can have a campaign which can be led by national associations and professional bodies across the world in relation to ensure what we call environmental justice across the country, but also across the continent and across the globe. This is not to say that all other sustainable development goals, for example, sustainable development goal number 1 is all about ensuring ending poverty in all its forms everywhere. So you cannot end it everywhere when you are not engaging all people everywhere. So my concern here is we need now to integrate technology in our interventions to attaining sustainable development goals. Yes, Alice.
Hello, my name is Alice. Although I had already posted the question, it goes back to the challenges that you're facing from, apart from now, I mean, directly to the service providers. How do you, what are the main biggest challenges that you're facing, you as a service provider, to
Excuse me,
the
Alice,
service receiver?
Alice, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We kindly wanted to ask you to be very brief. We are ready for the next question.
Well, apologies. It was just a challenge that they're facing, both the service providers and the service receivers. I think that was my question.
Yeah, I think the main issue that really comes in whenever we are using technology is there are always technological challenges, connectivity. Sometimes the sessions may have to go longer, but then at the end of the day, you find that maybe this particular client or even the social worker has little internet bundles, you know, so the intervention can't go on to the very end and successfully. So if you have to talk about technology, there are also those challenges. And as you know, that most of our clients are, most of them are those that are very needy and are poor in the community. So using of technology is not something that is very easy. Otherwise, thank you very much for taking part in the conference, and thank you very much for listening to us. I will hand it over to the team in Kigali, wishing you all the best. We'll continue to follow you.
Thank you so much. Let's appreciate him. I think Gerard and the team will keep being available for virtual interactions. You can see how best to reach them out for more questions. So when I go to the next session, which is a topic on quality assurance system framework on social service workforce, and it will be presented by UNICEF SRO. The technical team, over to you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sure, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Nimi-san, can you put the slide in full screen, please? Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is our great pleasure to take part following 2019 conference. So we wish the next one so we can be there, so that we can see face to face and all of you. So today, we are going to talk about the quality assurance system for the social service workforce, as we believe this is core building block, so to support the workforce as part of system strengthening. Next slide, please. And my name is Eli Meidas. So I'm from the UNICEF East and Southern Africa Regional Office. Okay, so what quality assurance system? So this is one of our corporate indicators. So we are monitoring this every year. So how is the situation of the country? Then that comprises of the 4 elements. The one is normative framework. So that sets of laws and policies that establish the laws and qualification and standard for organization and individuals engaging in social services. So this is quite critical aspect of the workforce. Then system for supervision and support. So that's more on supportive supervision mechanism. Then third is licensing and registration of the workforce, which is often take form of councils in this region. Then the last one is human resource information management system. So we believe this is core 4 elements, so to sustain the workforce, and also this is the core elements, so to advance the professionalization of the social work or related cadre. Next slide, please. Then over from 2018, 2017, 18, 20, so to 2020. So we are, as I mentioned, using these 4 elements, we are monitoring how the situation of the quality assurance system improve in this region. Then each element has 4 points, and it's just aggregation of different points. Now, as you can see, it's not in a right order, but so let's see, no development 0 to 4, which means this quality assurance system is not developed very well. So the number of the country that was categorized as no development was 6, but over to 2020, that is reducing very nicely. Then, so let's see the left one, mid-level development, 9 to 20. So the number of the countries, so moving to this category increased from 4 to 8, double up from 2017 to 2020. So the well-developed, most well-developed, it was usually South Africa only, but from 2017 to 2020, so we also have increased. By the way, I'm talking about only Eastern and Southern Africa region. So because I belong to that region, so just to clarify, so we're covering 21 countries in the region. So next slide, please. Then we did study, and also we are being developing the regional framework, so for the quality assurance system. So today, I'm going to touch on key findings and a few recommendations, and it will be published and soon. It hasn't finalized yet, but we are going to publish it, and so we will take an opportunity so also to engage external partners, so to solicit view, and then also to make sure we can implement what we found out. So the first one is on normative framework. Then, as I have mentioned, so this is a set of laws and policies, and that really established the role and the responsibility of the workforce. Then key findings, probably this is not so surprising to you. So you see that in the table, there's a different aspect of the social normative frameworks. So about regulatory body, licensing, registration, which I'm going to talk next, standardization of qualification, code of ethics, professional standards, also working condition and equal opportunity. So just a few categories. Then, as you can see, many countries are working on it. So that's very promising. So efforts are taking place. However, so development of law policy are a bit fragmented. So, and also as a UNICEF, we support our counterparts, but we have certain area we are our comfort zone. So it often be overreaching, Children's Act kind of work, but we are not so fully engaged in human resource policies and different types of policy. So as a UNICEF, we also have a bit imbalance in our engagement. Then also there are frequently missing themes. So in quality normative frameworks, that is on the equal opportunities, working conditions, remuneration, and career progression. That's most important aspect, isn't it? Then also about professional development and continuing education, and also code of ethics. They are often missing from the normative framework. Next slide, please. So, okay, then move into the supportive supervision. So evidence shows the structured, supportive, and reflective supervision helps to improve workers' retention and performance, and resulting in higher quality of service and support. Then key findings. Yeah, so in terms of legal mandate of supervision, so we found only 2 countries have it in the law. Then although there's a lack of legal mandate, many countries all have been working to develop or strengthen supervision framework. At the moment, as far as I know, Uganda is working, Mozambique is also working on it, Kenya is working on it. So a number of countries are now working on it. And then also in terms of like supportive supervision to whom also matters. As you can see in the circle, many efforts are clustered for the professionals. And then also it is sometimes linked to the case management mechanism itself. Then then we also have paraprofessionals and community level volunteers. There's a bit of overlap in between, but so they are less covered, but not so hugely different so from the professional cadre. Next, please. And licensing and registration of the workforce, and then also not registration only, registration, licensing, and accreditation of the workforce. So here, please take a look at the map on the right side. So if you see the 3 people sitting around in the table, the darker one, so 3, so there are countries having councils that is regulatory body established by the Act of Parliament, which is South Africa, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. Then you see white one, there are councils in pipeline. That means they have the bill for the social workers bill. So Kenya, Malawi, Zambia, and Uganda, and Botswana, I think. So as far as we understand, so they are been working on it. Actually, number of years that bill exists sometimes. Then we hope Kenya and Zambia is probably very close to the enactment. So we are really waiting for the good news. Then here, so we looked into the relationship between the councils and then associations, because association, many of the members of the National Association we are having right now in this room, virtually, and then also in the room. So we see there's a critical role of professional associations in terms of developing regulatory body, so for licensing and registration, and then also accreditation. So in the region, so we have about, it was 13 a few years ago, maybe it has increased, but we have 13 to 15 countries. So we recognize professional association for the social service workforce exist. Then usually they are the behind the scenes, so to establish councils. So then at the same time, councils that was officially established. So just to recap the basics. So licensing is about individual, so who can practice as member of the social service workers. So usually as social worker. Then accreditation, we are talking about, so for the training and education program to be properly reviewed and accredited. So this is the 2 different functions. Then these 2 associations and council sometimes it's very difficult. So to sustain both of them. So the sustain council itself sometimes could be very challenging. Then even having two could be difficult. Then, so we try to come up with the some thinking and then try to find out the good practice, how these two different organizations can coexist in a meaningful manner. Then we looked into the typology of these councils in relation to the function of associations. We also looked into the council itself in terms of degree of autonomy from government. That is important, although they need to be supported by government. And then, as I mentioned, so between the relationship between an association and also licensing tends to come earlier than accreditation function. That is also one of our findings. Next slide, please. So this is some, like there's a typology. So then we try to put it in the situation of the different countries. Some of them are just proposed. Then, yeah, so this is something, yeah, there's a hybrid version. So this is something we also learn from the other region. So this is something we want to really present. So especially for the countries working to establish the regulatory body so that we can really learn from the other countries and also from the other countries, other regions, and to opt the most optimized model. So especially to make sure professional associations function is well kept and well utilized. So next slide, please. So this is about the national data collection system for human resource information. Then, of course, if we don't have human resource information system, we don't know how many people are there, in which cadre, and what sort of training they have received, what is the gender, so more female, more male, and so who are there in terms of rural area or urban area. So without knowing all of these, we can't make any proper planning. So here, and also we looked into what sort of system they use. Then 45% use a combination of paper and electric method. Sometimes electric method only, then sometimes only paper-based. And it is often, so not only like a particular ministry, sometimes ministry has system, but sometimes it whole civil administration employ one big system. So sometimes we cannot just handle this in a very small corner of the social workers. Then often community level workers and volunteers are excluded from national or subnational databases. Next slide, please. And then as a UNICEF, this is one of the least engaged area. So in support, actually, in the past few years, we found only UNICEF Ethiopia is the only country office who supported the government in this sphere. Then this is key recommendations, and it's we still are finalizing it. Then to me, like all of these, just say, just do it. Very basic thing. So focusing on the necessity of financing, focusing on necessity of more elevated advocacy, and then all of this. Next slide, please. So here, so we are going to disseminate this so in the PowerPoint, and if you have any good input, so for the key recommendations, so we would welcome it. So then I'd like to stop here on the supervision mechanism, normative frame, quality assurance system. But I'd like to mention one more thing about UNICEF's initiative. So Nami-san, can you go back to the map? Okay, so here you see the map. Then you see the different color code. Then the darkest red shows very small number of workforce for child protection. So towards 100,000 child population. So that is I think now it slipped my mind. So I think it was less than 10. Then next dark orange, so that is less than 50 social service workers per 100,000 child population. Then a bit brighter orange, so is less than between 50 to 100 social service workers per 100,000 child population. Then only South Africa, so you see the yellow, has more than 300 social service workers. That is basically combination of social workers and child and youth care workers, so per 100,000 child population. Then this figure is low, very, very, very small. Then it's not only social workers, so it includes different cadre. Most likely this includes cadre. This is the illustration of the cadre support, government cadre only. It doesn't probably include NGO workers, but still it is very, very, very small. Then unless we tackle this issue, the small number of workforce, so child protection systems, so never be implemented adequately. And then as a regional office, together with our Kenya country office and also Zambia country office, so we are now going to embark on making investment case. So really looking into budget and expense, so to the workforce. Probably we will pick particular cadre across different program, different sectors, social welfare, justice, education, and health. Then we will look into the evidence. Then we are going to develop the investment case together with the government so that we can make more evidence-based policy and then also advocacy and planning. So this is one of the big projects. So we are really looking forward to embark on this next year. Okay, let me stop here, and yeah, if there's any question, so please let me know.
Thank you so much, UNICEF SRO. Shall put our hands together to appreciate her for the presentation. And again, I would love to take one question from this side, and if there is any question from the virtual participants. Do we have any one question before we go for the next session? Makaya, from your side, do you have any one of the question? Mayak, I mean, or from the Huye campus?
So I see probably two things that was posted. The standard include. So for Ruth, so about you mentioned about global standards. So, but I just want to reiterate. So we looked into the country level policy and normative framework. If it is reflected, it was counted. But if not, it was not. I hope this answers your questions. And from Paul, especially in Africa, what UNICEF tried to do in order to help the children in the period of COVID. Yeah, so in COVID-19 period, Nami-san, can you post the that guidance note on the chat box, please? Like one thing UNICEF has done was we have developed the guidance note for the protection and well-being of the social service workforce. So together with the Global Social Service Workforce Alliance and Alliance for Child Protection in Humanitarian Action, and also IFSW, not IFSW Africa only, but the global IFSW. So that was issued. So that was something related to the social service workforce during COVID-19. That really focusing on different aspects of it. So as I've mentioned, one is well-being of and the protection of the social service workforce in form of necessary equipment to be provided, such as mask or sanitization equipment and all of this, and also for the protection, so to facilitate remote service provision. Like in one of the common intervention with support from UNICEF in that period was, for example, providing additional airtime so that you can use the mobile phone more, so then you can facilitate things more remotely. Then, for example, what Carolina, so from the Mozambique country office, has mentioned is also one thing. So training to be provided remotely. So that is also one of the examples. And then other thing we have really put an effort is so to advocate, so to ensure the social service workers are considered to be the essential service workers. I'm sure many organizations did the same kind of advocacy, but as a UNICEF country offices, many of us really involved in that advocacy. Sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was not easy. Then generally we found out that when the workforce is more regulated, so this kind of essential service discussion was much, much easier. So I'd like to give the example of South Africa. For example, South Africa, that is they have most developed regulatory framework, regulatory body. So for both social service workers and youth and child care workers. So in their disaster management act, so they were already listed as the essential service workers. So they even needed to, didn't need to advocate because it was already there. But just UNICEF supported the operationalization of the deployment of social workers. Then by the other countries where we had a little bit of struggle, this conversation came back again and again. So when for the course of different waves of the COVID-19. So this is also one of the areas we have worked on. So NAMI has just put the link for the guidance note we have developed. So Joachim, so from the IFSW Africa also was part of this process too. So please take a look.
A question from Huye, please, maybe the 2 minutes that are remaining. Thank you, UNICEF, for this presentation. As you are aware, this conference has a particularity just to work with the youth for the transformation of the society tomorrow. I'd like to ask you what kind of message you can convey to the youth in terms of quality assurance as our future social service workforce. Thank you.
These youth are really young people. Are they already kind of like student of the social work at the university? So can you specify, please?
Yeah, our just student at university. They are our future social work and social service workforce.
Okay. Okay, great to know. Great to know. Okay, thank you. So I think this conference really, looked into many different pieces of practices and challenges. But as UNICEF, we partner with the government mainly, and then National Association is often, our one of the most important partners. But as you can see, we work for the systems. Unless we really change the systems, we never have the enough number of the workforce. We never have, decent career development, progression, remunerations, work conditions, unless we really tackle that, nothing will be sustainable. So I think this is like something we need to really come together, so to join hands and amplify our voice, so for the change. That's very important. Then especially for young students, So they can also form associations. Then sometimes main association, invite, these students, sometimes at the university level. So you have association as a, students. So here, so this is like, occasion and an opportunity for you to really come together and then continuously engage your government. So for change, I think that's very, very important for the value of the social work and as a whole, but also ultimately, so to support, as a UNICEF, we have to say children, but any population that needs support of the social workers. Over. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's appreciate her once more time. Time is not on our side, so I'm sorry I won't be able to take more questions because we have to go for the second last session, which is challenges and opportunities of associations. Lesson from Botswana Association. Over to the technical team.
Welcome to the International Federation of Social Workers Conference 2021, which is being hosted on the 23rd to the 26th of November by our fellow association in Rwanda, the Rwanda National Organization of Social Workers. My name is Buyani Chidoda, a fellow social worker from the Botswana National Association of Social Workers. Rwanda is hosting the regional conference on social work under the theme towards Ubuntu and sustainable development, social work positioning in Africa in achieving SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. We are Botswana National Association of Social Workers, commonly known in our country as BONAS, and we are very honored and privileged to be able to participate in this auspicious conference. As we all know, we have been hit by a pandemic, COVID-19, and unfortunately, as BONAS, we are unable to physically partake in this conference, but we wouldn't miss it for the world. That is why we are sharing on a virtual platform our contribution towards this conference by sharing insights on the challenges and opportunities of associations, giving insight on the Botswana scenario. BONAS will share a virtual discussion, like I already mentioned, undertaken on the subject topic that I also shared. And we will be having representatives from our association partners, from government, civil society, and the University of Botswana Social Work Students Community. We have a National Executive Committee that comprises of the President, the Vice President, the Secretary General, Vice Secretary General, the Public Relations Office, the Treasury, and Recording Secretary, and additional members. And further to this executive committee, we also have regional coordinators in about 7 regions in our country. I will not go into details of how we operate as an association. It was just to give you a synopsis of Botswana National Association of Social Workers. And I want to believe, as my fellow presenters take on the stage, they will also give you a bit of enlightenment on the situation in Botswana as far as the social work body is concerned. I want to take this time to introduce our president, of the association, Madam IFSWAfricaSWSD2021, who will give you the welcome remarks and introduce the purpose of today's event. Thank you.
In welcoming our participants and greeting those who are in Rwanda, let me acknowledge the organizing team of the IFSW African region for giving us this platform to partake. I believe that we are doing this for the first time as the Botswana National Association of Social Workers, as an association, though some individual members have participated by presenting papers before at such conferences. The theme of the conference being towards Ubuntu and sustainable development, the social work positioning in achieving the SDGs is very key, as the MC has mentioned. We are therefore happy to present our voices as Botswana, as practitioners, as partners in government, as civil society organizations, as well as students or the youth social workers on this topic, being challenges and opportunities of associations, lessons from Botswana, which is very key and relevant to the theme. Ubuntu or Boto in Setswana, as we know, is related to communal effort for achieving common goals. And therefore, there are great benefits in associating. Even animals move in flocks, they move in herds, which shows that as human beings, it should also be inherent in us, especially those who are learned, which I believe social workers are, should be inherent in us. And it should be known among us that groups bring better results. Our main challenge in Botswana is that the association, even though it has existed for over 20 years, like the MC has said, has not managed to attract as many social workers as we would. And therefore, we have missed on a lot of opportunities such as support, professional support from one another, especially during the era of COVID. It was proven, it was very evident that we needed each other during the tough times of COVID. We have also lost on continuous development, which we could have taken advantage of by partaking in association events. We have also lost a lot in participating in global and regional activities that are social work related. And as such, I wish in welcoming the participants to urge them to fully participate in sharing our lessons from Botswana, especially those of the students or youth social workers, because I believe that we work best for success if we engage students or those from the grassroots, as well as fresh practitioners. They have a lot of energy. They are very energetic, which can bring a lot of opportunities as well for us. Technology that they use currently, which is key in social work, and generally just that sort of zeal that they have to reawaken our association as it should, to move from the point where it is to where social workers can feel that they are benefiting from the association, and not to go for other options that we have, for example, in Botswana, such as unions. We also have public service forums where social workers are partaking at the expense of partaking in the association. As such, I wish to welcome the participants and urge them to feel free to give Africa and the world what challenges and opportunities we are facing here in Botswana. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Press Ivy, for welcoming us to this conference. We feel very welcome, and I guess we are all now relaxed and calm, and we are ready to share our stories, the voices of social workers in Botswana, courtesy of Botswana National Association of Social Workers. As Madam Press was welcoming us, I picked on the inherent nature of human beings to pull together. And that in itself speaks to one of the Sustainable Development Goals, that is Goal 17, Partnership for Goals. And its relevance to us as social workers cannot be overemphasized, because it's important that as social workers, we pull together, we collaborate, we group each other, we work together towards boosting our profession, towards ensuring that our practice is recognized out there. And next on the platform, ladies and gentlemen, is our guest presenter who will detail highlights on the challenges and opportunities of associations, insights from Botswana. We are privileged to have the president of the Association of Schools of Social Work, also serving in Bonas as the Vice Secretary General. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite Dr. Komuto Jongman to the podium.
I joined the National Association of Social Workers in 2008. I joined as a student because I had the fire in me that pushed me to want to do something about social work in Botswana. When I got to the association, immediately I got into leadership positions, and I had to push for mobilization of social workers, because the association was almost non-existent when I came in. In 2009 to 2010, I, with other people, worked tirelessly. We really worked very hard to put social workers together. We brought them together, and then in 2010, I think on the 26th of July, the 26th of June, I was elected to become the president. When I was a leader, I was more on the pragmatic side. I was more on the pushing side. I was not on the side of let us train others so that when we are not there, they can take over. And then when we left, there was one committee and the second committee, and then after that, it was difficult to have people on board. So this has been challenging as in the association, and there are opportunities. There are opportunities. I've always said association is a vehicle that we can use it to advocate for social work, to create employment, to create incentives. So there are opportunities that are there, but they are not exploited because people want to see opportunities already packaged the way they want them. They don't want to see opportunities packaged in overalls, because you need to work for those opportunities, but the opportunities are there. I, for one, believe that association has benefited me a lot, especially in terms of exposure, in terms of leadership training, in terms of group dynamics, in terms of learning and seeing the world around me. So I believe there are opportunities. Despite all the challenges that are there, I still believe there are opportunities out there. When we are taught social work, we don't emphasize on the professional infrastructure of the profession. I know it is voluntary, but emphasizing on the importance of this infrastructure is very important, because as a profession, we need to have a body where we can talk professional issues. And if we don't have the opportunity to discuss such issues as ourselves, it becomes a challenge. We have the University of Botswana Social Work Society, which is supposed to be the breeding ground for the National Association and giving exposure to students, but we still don't get students participating. So I hope this will help others who are out there to think about what is there in social work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We continue with our presentations from Botswana. Next on the stage is a young woman, a young person. In our indigenous language, we say, lo re lo ojwa lo sale metsi. I was saying it slowly so that you can try and get it and relate to it. And it simply means that you educate or develop from the grassroots. So we are very privileged to be having a young person in our midst willing to share the situation in Botswana. I'm going to be welcoming Ms. Kato Mabua, who is the project coordinator from the University of Botswana Social Work Society.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Greetings to you, ladies and gentlemen. As Madam Chair has mentioned, my name is Kato Mabua. I am a representative from the University of Botswana Social Work Society. I'll start off by looking at the challenges and then I'll go into looking at the opportunities. The major challenges that are faced by students in particular to associations is that we lack knowledge on the importance of being members or part of the associations, particularly Bonaswa. Therefore, it urges the association to work towards mobilizing and educating students on the importance of being part of these associations. There is difficulty in engaging students in the activities due to time constraints and busy schedules of students. It is hard for students to partake in the different activities that are held by the Bonaswa. However, it is important that I highlight that in the Bonaswa Executive Committee, we have a student representative who is our president, whom from time to time partakes on the different activities that are held by the Bonaswa. I will be now moving on into the opportunities. We have a number of opportunities that we can benefit from being members of the association. The first opportunity is that as students, when we become members of the association, we get to network. We get to interact and learn from professionals, being social work professionals from different organizations, from different backgrounds, because some work in non-governmental organizations, some work for the government, some serve in the civil society. Therefore, being a part of the association will allow us as students to network and get to learn and develop our competencies in being social workers. Furthermore, I would like to highlight that being a part of the association as a student gives you an opportunity to interact with other social workers in the world, because the association acts as an international liaison, which gives us an opportunity to participate in conferences like this one. Moving on into another opportunity that we get from being members of the association is that we get exposure through interacting with different professionals, through interacting with people from different backgrounds, through interacting with social workers from different times. We get to understand the profession more. We get to learn not only the theory part of being a social worker, but even the practice of being a social worker. How to navigate once you are done with school, you can learn that from being a part of the association. Lastly, I would like to highlight that being a part of this association unifies people. It unifies people from different backgrounds. It unifies people from different schools of social work. For instance, in Botswana, we have a number of schools that offer social work. Therefore, being a part of this association will allow us to interact with different people and become a unit. Therefore, we will be able to advocate for change and to work towards different activities in the association. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Komole Morasi Seho, a child protection specialist from the Botswana Country Office, and also a social worker by profession. Today, I'm going to be touching a little bit on some of the challenges that are faced by social workers, especially looking in the Botswana context. When we look at the social work profession, it's one of the oldest professions in the country, and the social workers are charged with a lot of responsibility, including taking care of vulnerable children, including taking care of people who have different vulnerabilities, as well as taking care of juvenile delinquents, among a lot of issues that they deal with. When we look at some of the challenges faced by social workers, these include but are not limited to a high number of clientele which they have to face. For example, in the study that we conducted in Botswana, it was shown that one social worker covers over 100,000 people alone. So it shows that we really have a shortage of social workers in the country. And one of the other issues is that we have not professionalized our social work profession as yet. And it's one of the areas where, as UNICEF, felt is very imperative to support our social work associations to be able to professionalize by coming up with a social work council that will, in the process, be able to support social workers to make sure that they are regulated, to make sure that they are appropriately registered. There is still an opportunity when you look at the social work profession in that social workers are still very relevant. We are looking at the times, how they have changed, how people continue to have different vulnerabilities, such as the COVID-19, which is the case that we have currently. Social workers are very, very important when it comes to issues of mental health and psychosocial support. And as UNICEF, we also support the strengthening of the social service workforce, because we find that in our country, most of the social workers will be posted after they complete their studies, but then they will be in the field for a long time without getting any more training prior to their completing their studies. So as UNICEF, we are supporting to come up with programs that are going to be in-house, or that are going to be helping social workers who are already in the field to increase their knowledge, as well as to help them to keep updated with what is going on in the world, so that they become competent, so that they are able to adequately assist the clientele that they are helping. So in terms of the Social Work Association, UNICEF is committed to supporting them in all the way that they can. We are currently working through our regional office to support all the social work associations with the training needs that they might have, also with the technical support that they may need in order for the associations to be able to support the social workers all over, be it in the field, be it who are still studying, or retired social workers. So ladies and gentlemen, that was my deliberation on the Social Work Association. Thank you very much.
I want to believe that we have shared our experiences, we have shared our successes, we have shared our challenges, and we have shared our opportunities as the social work organization or the Social Work Association in Botswana. The journey has been challenging, the journey has been enjoyable, the journey promises to be more fun and interesting. We hope that we will continue to improve and work tirelessly to become a better association, to become better social workers in Africa and in the world. Social work as a profession in Botswana is continuously growing. Social work challenges in Botswana are continuously growing. And we believe that as the association, we are faced with immense task to see to it that we prevail. So we would like to take this opportunity to thank IFSW Africa for giving us this opportunity to present what we have presented. We hope it will make an impact across Africa. Thank you very much. We will continue doing our best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is so awesome. And little like this tells us that the future of social work is very bright and exciting. I want to entertain two questions, be it a question or supplement from the house. Please, if you have a question, you can raise up your hand. Yes, David.
So I have the mic. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the presentation. Doctor, you said that your association exists since 20 years. And in the beginning, social workers were reluctant to join your association. So I'd like to know what is the situation now, and what are the strategies you used to attract social workers to join your association. Thank you.
I hope the question was heard. All right, as we wait for Doctor to get ready, maybe people from who can go ahead to ask the next question. I just want to be sure if the person responsible for answering is there, so that we don't ask many questions while they. Mayaka, if you don't mind to let us know if the person answering the question is around.
Thank you for that. I would like to find, I'm trying to reach to see if Ivy is in the team, but I'm not sure if she's there because I cannot be able to see her. Considering that, I think the best would be to forward the questions to them via chat, and then we'll be able to get the feedback directly. So we can have the last question from Huye, because I can see there's already somebody on the pavilion to ask. From there, we can move to the next one. Thank you.
Just one question from Huye.
Thank
Then
you.
Further.
Thank you. My name is Sylvie Ngarire, and I'm a social work student in Huye. My question is, first of all, thanks for the presentation. But I had a question. According to your presentation, your association is working very hard, and it is in some way like succeeding. My question is, what is the advice would you give to other associations around Africa so as they can succeed?
Thank you. I hope, Mike, you're able to get the question. And as you promised, you will forward to the people responsible. So we want to go for our last session before lunch. But I want to ask us to stretch. Please, you can just stretch. Okay, if you don't mind, just rise on your feet for a minute. Just rise on your feet. Hello, and just do what I'll be doing. All of us, let's put our hands here. Put your hand on your head. So let's do it quick. On your head, on your stomach, on your head, on your stomach, on your head, on your stomach, on your head. Okay, I just wanted that stretch. Just appreciate yourself. Let's put our hands together for ourselves as we invite Professor Uzoma Okoye for the last session before lunch. Over to you, Professor Uzoma Okoye. Mayaka, I hope Professor is in the call, or are we going to pray a video? Please let us know as we wait for.
Well, I had talked to her a few minutes ago. She was ready, and I think, I'm not sure if it is connectivity or what, because let's give us a minute as we try to reach her. Thank you.
Okay. So as you are waiting for the connectivity, there are some questions which have been received on the presentation from Hope and Homes. can we receive those questions? And Innocent, as he is still here, can he respond? The questions about technology, they are innovative. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Jean-Pierre Tumukiza. I work for Partners in Health. Thank you, Inosa, to the good presentation. I have one question to ask regarding two reporting mechanisms. When you see how ISU or Friends of Family reports, we find that the reports pass through 4 channels from cell, sector, district to national level. I would like to ask, who is key person or who is the first person to respond to the raised problem from the community? That's my question.
That is a great question, and it's good it's coming from Jean-Pierre, who has been involved at some extent before he joined the organization. So who is the key person? The key person actually is the DMO, the district mainstreaming officer at district level. What does it mean? Doesn't mean that that is the only person who will be following up on issues, because issues or concerns come in their complexities. It's like a kind of case management. So depending on which needs is assessed, which concern is assessed, it will be like a referring. So that person concentrate on who is doing this, who is doing that. But at the same time, the DMO has that capacity of engaging either RIB, Rwanda Investigation Bureau, if it is something criminal, or if it is something that requires assistance, the DMO, the district mainstreaming officer, will know which organization, which partner. So it's like coordination is much under DMO, but at the same time, other partners can check and say nothing happened on this specific case so that it is addressed. But the responsibility of people with disabilities are under the structures under the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Innocent, for the response. Mine is like when you were presenting right away from the start, into my mind there came an idea of a saying that all, first of all, I had to feel like I should say this as an appreciation to your caring and guidance, even affirmative action that you put forward as Hope and Home for Children, right? Children with disabilities. Most of you here, your parents, and we are also preparing ourselves to be parents. But there is something I would like to say. It's like a quote that no matter I'm disabled, but do not always put a this in my ability, because where I can do best, someone needs it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, I think we keep learning as we work with people with disabilities. Personally, I have a kind of personal experience because my brother, who was just, how do we say it? My younger brother just coming after me has disabilities, and it was complex. He's no longer alive, but it's like a calling on why I am committed to their mission. But when we talk about accessibility, that is the big issue at government level. When we talk about inclusion, so it's that way I insisted on shifting from a charity approach rather to a right-based approach. So I'm preparing for the next conference maybe to focus on the implementation of the UN Convention of the Right of People with Disabilities. So moving from they deserve this and this and this. Rather assess how do we make sure we remove barriers to accessing services rather than saying they are not able to do A, B, C, D. My younger brother was the one drawing for me for homework, and they could have almost maximum. So those skills were there, but our family and cultural, if I can say, infrastructure, but also superstructure, does not allow it. And that's why in our advocacy, we have a show on Radio TV 10, where we keep engaging the general population to know that we don't do it because we are compassionate with them, but because we believe with their participation, they will strive to become independent. So it's a complementarity to DI. We don't just place children from institution. We question even where they live in communities, what can be done to improve their lives, but also building their independent skills. Because when supported, they do it. So I don't want to abuse time, but we have a lot of cases. I don't like using cases of families and children who went through a well-designed support, well-tailored support, and the family changed. Very recently in the DGD, a person with disability, complex disabilities, contributed as an advocate for persons with disabilities, and it was a wow. So people were like, can this person speak out when I'm afraid to take this microphone? So even empowering them to be self-advocate. So I would be happy in the next conference if we have even people with disabilities, we can work together so that they deliver the message. They show you that they are full of capacity. We just put barriers. We don't remove barriers so that they fulfill their potentials. We are all limited, so we have some level of disabilities as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've just been informed that Professor Uzoma Okoye has already joined the call, and we are so honored to invite Professor Uzoma Okoye to talk to us. Over to you, Professor. You're very welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. Without wasting our time, I want to start sharing my screen so that I will be done in 10 minutes. I'm going to be talking about aging and care of older adults in contemporary Nigeria. I'll be looking at the myths, and I'll be looking at the myths, and I'll be looking at the realities. And so I want to start by looking at population of older adults in Nigeria, 65 years and above. Currently, it's about 9.1 million. And in 2025, it is expected it will rise to 11.5 million. And by 2050, it will rise to about 26 million. However, in a population of 220 million, policymakers believe that this is a very small number, and that is part of the problem. Some of these projections are part of the problem why many people think we do not have aging problems in Africa, or that we do not have aging problems in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have few policies for older adults. The first one is what I call politically motivated interventions during elections. Because you know that older adults are the ones that usually vote, you find politicians gathering them together to give them bags of rice, wrappers, and then some money. Every 4 years, that is when they will remember the older adults and they will do some stuff for them. Then we have what we call National Social Insurance Trust Fund. This is only for older adults that worked in a private sector organization employing up to 25 persons, but registered with this organization. They get some form of pension every month, but how many older adults worked there? We have a National Center for elderly persons. This is still on paper. It's not been implemented. Then we have the National Senior Citizen Center Act. Of late, the government has set up the agency. It now has like the bureaucracy, the administrative body, and they have started doing a few things. We hope that this agency will be in a position to, talk about the lot of older adults and the need for us to take the issues of older adults seriously. The last of all the government interventions is what we call the pension scheme. The pension scheme is the most popular. However, it is fraught with a lot of problems. In 2004, government reformed it, but the reform is only beneficial to workers that are federal, what we call federal workers. In Nigeria, we have federal workers and then we have state workers. So the federal workers, only about 800,000 of them benefit from this Pension Reform Act of 2004. But majority of the workers we have in Nigeria are state workers, and so you find that they don't benefit. If you look at the pictures by your right, these are Nigerian pensioners. They have what they call, there's what they call verification, which they do sometimes every 3 months, every 6 months. You can see them. They come here to be verified, to do biometrics, and they do this all the time. Many of them die in the process, just trying to collect their pension. And so I want to veer to caregiving, because the whole idea of this paper is to show that caregiving of older adults in Nigeria is still within the domain of the family, with governments contributing little or nothing in caring for this population, probably because they think that we do not have older adults. So I define caregiving here as all forms of support and assistance given to older adults. It could be by way of calling them on telephone, visiting them, praying for them, and all other supports that people give older adults. In Nigeria, these supports are mainly done by the family members and a few times non-governmental organizations and some CSOs. Look at, but this was not how it was in traditional society, where the older adults held sway. The extended family system was very strong. The older adults actually were the leaders because society was governed on gerontological basis. Everyone had a role to play. The older adults were in charge of religion, even politics and everything. They had prophetic, issues on everything. The extended family was strong. Children were there to render help to the older adults and so on. You could see a picture of a typical extended family system as we have it in Nigeria then, though it is dying, but not much. We still have a lot of extended family issues in Nigeria. The older adults were given consideration then in virtually everything. But whether when you want to share stuff, when you want to share meat, the older adults will get the part that they can chew. Then the elderly women on their own were traditional midwives. They were teachers. They were child minders. So you find that in traditional society, the older adults were not abandoned. They were even the ones supporting, because everybody was supportive of each other. But a lot has changed today. Why? We look at why caregiving for older adults is very difficult in Nigeria. If you look at the two pictures I have, one is a typical family house in the rural area where you have like 20 bedrooms, everybody's living together. The other one is the typical urban building where most older adults cannot fit in. And so you find that many older adults are left behind in the villages because of the way the houses in the urban cities are constructed. And also because of other things. Education. Many women are now educated. Many women are working. Many of us want our children to be educated. Because of that, we cannot send them to live in the rural area. No, they have to go to the urban cities where they will get education. Women now work, women just changing gender roles, women who are usually the 80% of the caregivers are made up of women. Women now work, they are CEOs, they have offices. And so it's difficult to get them to start doing the care, to go back to that caregiving role. Occupational mobility, we have to travel to go to our works. People are even outside the country on migration and so on and so forth. All these are actually making caregiving for older adults a little bit difficult, especially for families. What are the myths about aging and caregiving in Nigeria. Number one myth, percentage of older adults is quite low. Who told you? Because we have World Bank statistics, because we have United Nations statistics, they will tell you that the percentage is low. I know that a lot of my mates who are 50 years and above, we still have both parents alive. Many of us still have both parents alive. And so when they look at this percentage is low, therefore we don't need policy. It's a problem. Life expectancy is low. They'll tell you in Africa, in Nigeria, because of HIV/AIDS, 55 years life expectancy, therefore you don't have older adults. Who told you? Like I said, many of us have both parents are alive in their 90s and in their 80s. And so I begin to suspect some of these figures they churn out. Few older adults are being cared for by their families. That is not true. Just until a few years back, my parents-in-law were still alive. My parents are alive, and we care for them in the family. So saying that the family is caring for very few older adults is not true. Then we have this social development policy in Nigeria that is talking about strengthening family support, that people should not put older adults in institutions. And because of that, government does not support any institution. And that is why in Nigeria today, we have just maybe not up to 10, mainly for Catholic Reverend Fathers or for Catholic Reverend Sisters. We don't have institutions in Nigeria that may actually help in bearing the burden of caregiving when the need arises. Let us talk about the realities of caregiving or aging in Nigeria. Like I said, many middle-aged adults, 60 years, 50 years and above, still have both parents alive, notwithstanding what the World Bank and United Nations are saying. Many families are groaning under the weight and expense of caring for their older adults. Sometimes some have up to 4 to care for, and this is a big problem. When you care for an older adult in the family, the overall quality of other members of the family are affected. I'm not talking from literature, I'm talking from personal experience. I'm caring for my mom and for my dad, and I know what it takes. I know how it affects my husband, I know how it affects my children, and even the family purse. The family purse, the monies I can take to them, the time I have to be away at home, and so on. It is not easy on other family members. Let us look at the realities again. Most older adults may, not most, but a lot of older adults may sometimes need to go to institutions, even if it's just for 3 weeks, for 1 month. If I live with my mom and I want to travel, where do I keep her? I can keep her in a halfway home where I can come back after 3 weeks and she will be with me. Before in Nigeria, we had no case of abandonment of older adults. Now it is our reality. You even see some of them begging on the streets. And unfortunately, the cohort of older adults we have now didn't work because of the quality level of education they got to. Many of them did not work where they can get very big pension or save a lot of money. And so families must still have to support them. We talk about gender differences. In Nigeria, older men, sometimes as old as 80 years, can remarry, but that is not so in Nigeria. In Nigeria, you find a young girl of 35 whose husband died because she has 3 children. They'll tell her, no, you can't remarry, you must take care of these children. But so women do not have that luck of remarrying and having someone to support them, even sometimes when they have the money. Then the cohort of older women that we have now didn't work. So even when they did at the lower level, maybe as cleaners, as messengers. So when they retire, they also earn low. However, you find that in Nigeria, children are more likely to support their mom than their dad. You also find that women are more likely to want to go and live with their children, unlike the men who want to stay in the villages or want to stay in their home. They will tell you, I'm too old to live, I can't live. And so let me round off by giving you a case example of how the family is groaning under the weight of taking care of older adults. These are my parents. They're in their mid-80s. They have 3 children, myself and 2 boys. We are all married. My mom has severe heart condition. She's diabetic, she's hypertensive. She has severe arthritis. My father is hypertensive. My father once had stroke, he's recovered. And so they are under medication. My mother, because she retired as a teacher, she earns about 25 euro as pension, 25 naira. And my dad, because he has no pension, I had to place him, you know, myself on a small pension of about 42 euros a month since 2010. Both of them have drug that you have to buy 28-day cycle of 65 euros. There's a physiotherapist that must come to the house to take care of them once a week, and I pay her monthly about 21 euros. Then they have a caregiver who lives permanently with them, who gets about 42 euros every month. Then I have to provide the food, myself and my brother. So I have to provide the food, provide everything. So if you look at my income and look at how much I am spending, of course, it is going to have effect on my own family. And so people will ask, why do I have to do this? I have to do that because that is the way I am socialized. That is the way we were socialized, that children will have to care for their parents. In fact, in Africa, children are security. When you have children, you're sure that your old age is secure. Then the cultural belief, in my own part of Nigeria, the Southeast, it is very big that if you don't take care of your parents, they will curse you. And that there is so much power in that curse, that when they curse you, you amount to nothing, you may die young, your children won't take care of you. And who wants that? Therefore, we provide care. Then, in my own part of Nigeria, again, the Southeast, your mother's relatives are, the fear of them is the beginning of wisdom. And so you must care for your mom, so your mother's relatives won't be on your case. Then again, for me, the most important, we care for them because we love them, because we are grateful for them, to them for sending us to school. We want to reciprocate all the love they gave us when we were young and sending us to good schools. But there's a lot of problems when family members will have to provide care, which government must take into consideration. Elder abuse will normally occur because sometimes you get so tired, you get so worked up, you get so frustrated. Because you are caring for an older adult, providing all the person's needs, they lack choices. And you know, in this life, people should have a choice. But there are things my mother would tell, she says she wants. I said, no, Mama, you can't have that because I'm the one going to pay that. Papa, you can't have that because I'm the one going to pay for that. They lack choices, and that is not good for people. Everybody should have a choice. Then sometimes this can cause a very big strain in the family relationship, a lot of strain. Then as a worker, I have to work. I'm a lecturer, I have to teach. But sometimes I must go home to go and take care of my parents, to go and see what is happening. I must run. Sometimes in the middle of a class, I am called that my father fell or something. I have to go home. This affects my productivity because government is paying me to teach children, not to care for my parents. And that is also not good enough. There's this short story about a Nigerian celebrity who wrote that you don't owe your parents anything. They should have prepared for their old age. He wrote on Twitter, and Nigerians on Twitter abused him so much. If you read all the things they said, you're a bad man, that you did this, I'm sure you have gone crazy. These are some of the things they were saying about the man, because they cannot imagine how a Nigerian would say you should not take care of your parents, they should have prepared for old age. You know, these are some of the things. Some said, oh, I think his account is hacked. Some said, no, I think he's high on drugs, because they can't believe that a Nigerian will say this. And so what can we do? Suggestion, what can we do to make the quality of life of older adults in Nigeria, good, to improve it, or even in Africa? I've made a few suggestions. Number one, in Nigeria, they need to review this emphasis on no institutionalization. No, that is not in our culture. I have had the experience to know that we need some institutions. It may not be a permanent old people home where they will live. Supposing we have like a halfway home where you can say the maximum time an older adult can stay here is 3 months, 2 weeks. We need respite. The person who is doing the care can also get some respite. Or what of adult daycare centers where an older adult can go in the morning, then in the evening you come and take the person back. This will help caregivers a lot. And I think government should start looking into this. Then we also look at the National Citizen Center. They need to fund it. They need to fund it. It's on now, but they need to fund it so they can start also looking at how to make the lot of older adults in Nigeria better. And the last but not the least, they need to revise the pension scheme. The pension is very paltry. That's one. Number two, they need all this every 6 months, they have to come to do revalidation and all that. It is not good enough. Many older adults die in the process, and government should, if possible, make pension available to anybody who is 65 years or 70 years and above, whether you worked for the government or whether you do not work for the government. This is very important. The family is groaning under the care of older adults, and I'm pleading that government should look into this. Government all over Africa, not just in Nigeria. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Professor. It is such an interesting topic, and I'm sure we have questions in the house. I just would love to entertain 2 questions. And
let me appreciate the presentation. It is really very rich and very prepared and delivered. However, I have some observation on the topic. Yes, other adults are lost their forces, physical forces, to take in hand their life by themselves. But I was asking myself if you suggest that national centers for adults, I didn't get where the concept should do, or have enough funds to support those people. I would like to ask you, they will normally, if older adults remain in their homes, they still feel competent and dependent. And when they are supported from there, they feel really comfortable rather than being taken to other places. And it is true that we cannot remain around them, because nowadays we are obliged to live so far from them, depending on work conditions. And in rural areas, there are no facilities that can help us to live in good conditions as we wish. The reason why sometimes we leave them in rural areas and we go in urban areas where we can gain satisfactory infrastructures and other facilities. Now, what do you think if our parents remain in the country, in their families, or are taken to our families to reduce the cost? Because if they are still dependent on our their children, it means that if they are taken to our homes, the cost will be reduced. What do you think if we take them to our homes to care for them every day?
Yeah, taking them to our homes to care for them, it's okay, but I'm a woman, I'm married, I have a husband who has a mother and a father. Supposing I want to bring my parents, and my husband said, okay, let us also bring his or her parents. What would that look like? It means we may have to get a 10-bedroom apartment. Then how will I cope with doing all that caring? So sometimes it is not tenable taking them to live with us. And like you said, they like staying in their homes. Older adults like staying in their homes. But for us that are giving the care, is it possible sometimes for us to have small rest, just a little, take them to that home where they could be for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I travel, go on vacation with my family. When I come back, I go take them back. That is what I'm saying. I'm not saying they must remain in the home. Definitely, we know that staying in their houses is the best form of care. But what of respite care for the caregiver? the caregiver should also always be considered. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. I'm just being notified that time is not on our side. I'm wondering if there is any way you can kindly avail your contacts. This is a deep and interesting topic. I'm sure people have more questions, but time is not on our side. So if that can be available to people who love to consult you, I think
yes, I'll do that immediately. That would be very, very fine. I'll do that.
Right,
so please, so I've just shared my email, zoma.koy@unn.edu. So if you want the slides again, I can also share the slides for those who want it, you know. So that's my email. Thank you.
So good to have you. Members, can we appreciate her again?
Thank you. Thank you.
And this marks the end of our afternoon session. We'll now break for lunch and then come back exactly at 2 for the next the afternoon session.
Yeah.
We can go for lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you all and enjoy your lunch. See you in 1 hour.